All right, let's go. This is everything I read in the months of April, May, and June. I'm going to go through them in the order that I read them, and then I'll rank them at the end. There's nothing below a 3.5 star here, and quite a few 4.5 stars, so it was a good reading quarter. First up, I read this chonker. This is The System of the World by Neal Stephenson. This is book 3 in his Baroque cycle. This is set in the 1700s. Now, I gave the first 2 books 3 stars. This one, it's a little bit better. It still didn't blow my socks off. I think partially my enjoyment is tempered by the fact that maybe I don't know enough history to enjoy all the subtle stuff in here. But I think the main problem I have with this trilogy is it was hard for me to understand the motivations of the characters in these books, understanding where the plot was going. This one is more involved with Newton and the mint, because Newton, although he did all the calculus stuff, he was actually in charge of the Royal Mint in England in the later part of his life. So a lot of this book deals with that, and that's kind of interesting. And there were times where it was like, yes, this is the kind of writing I love about Stephenson. There's one section where Newton is talking with Leibniz about the nature of the universe, and that was just fantastic. And there is a bit of levity in the way that Neal Stephenson writes, which can be fun. Ultimately, though, I do have mixed feelings about this. In some sense, after having finished this book, I do kind of want to go back and reread it again, knowing how it all finishes. But 3,000 pages is a big ask. And I think for most people, with the exception of Brian Lee Durfee, I think most of the booktubers that I know probably would not enjoy this trilogy. So that may be a downer of a start, but it gets better. After that heavy tome, I had to read something light, so I read Johnny and the Dead by Terry Pratchett. This is the second book in the Johnny Maxwell trilogy, and this one was very much more like Discworld. The first one was not quite the same as a Discworld, but this one definitely had more of that kind of humorous way of writing that we love about Discworld. And just briefly, this is set in our world around the 90s. It's just a guy called Johnny. He's probably about 12 years old. And this book involves him being able to see these dead people. And the dead people are annoyed because their cemetery is about to be redeveloped into like some shopping centre. Anyway, it's got all of Pratchett's trademark humour, and you don't have to have read the first book to read this one. I think anyone that enjoys Discworld will enjoy this book. Then I went back into the fantasy with Rage of a Demon King by Raymond E. Feist. This is the third book in the Serpentwar saga, part of the larger Riftwar cycle. And in this one, Feist really swings for the fences. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of stuff that happens in this book. I obviously can't go into too many details. The first book had our 2 main characters, Eric and Rue, boyhood friends, going off and kind of being involved in this big battle somewhere else. The second book focused on one of those characters and building his financial empire. This one is back to the 2 characters, one doing his soldiering and the other one doing his financial empire stuff. But really, the main thing to say about this is there is a lot that happens. And to any long-time reader of the series, you're going to go, what? And then you get to a chapter called Catastrophe, and you think, what else could go wrong? And it has a pretty satisfying ending, and it leaves things in a very interesting place for the 4th book. So that's Rage of a Demon King. I am continuing my read-through of every Isaac Asimov. The next one was I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. This is the first of the Robot series. This is actually set around our time, like it starts in the 90s and it goes through to about 2050. And all these stories were originally published in pulp magazines and then combined into this one novel. Actually, my copy is missing 2 of the stories. For some reason, I just don't get it. Like, why would you publish one of these books? Obviously, they had a page limit or something. So the 2 last stories were missing from this. I do have those stories in another volume, so I was able to read them. Anyway, this follows the development of robotics through those years, and it's very interesting to see the 3 laws of robotics that Asimov came up with and how they can be used to generate interesting stories. A lot of them are kind of mystery stories, like a robot will do something kind of strange and then you're left to wonder, why did that happen? And using the 3 laws of robotics, it can kind of be explained eventually. And I love it when sci-fi authors try to predict what is going to come up in the future. I will do a full review of this later and go into some of those fun things. But I can definitely say this is an awesome book, and it's a good introduction. If you have never read Asimov, this is a good one to start with. Next up, I read How to Steal a Dragon's Sword. This is by Cressida Cowell. This is book 9 of the How to Train Your Dragon series. I can't believe I'm up to book 9. It's ridiculous as always and a lot of fun. There's a whole bunch of sword fighting stuff that goes down in this one and treasure chests. And there's actually a very interesting ending for this one. There's a definite change that Hiccup has definitely started growing up and is starting to get some respect from his peers. And at the end of the book, well, I can't spoil it, but anyway, something radical happens, and it's going to be very interesting to see where the book series goes from here. Next up, I continued my read-through of everything that Gavriel has ever written. This is his second ever book, and the second book in the Fionavar Tapestry, The Wandering Fire. So this is a portal fantasy. A bunch of people from our world, uni students, have gone into this fantasy world, and actually at the start of this book, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Anyway, they're in this fantasy world, and I think this is a step up from the first book. There's some exciting stuff that happens, especially at the end. I still do have the same problem, I think, that I had with Neal Stephenson, that often I don't know what the motivations of the characters are. Or they just know things. Like, they're people from our world and they just know how to do things in this world. And there is kind of maybe an explanation for that. There's a certain mythological aspect of our world, our own legends that come into this book, and that is an interesting aspect. I am looking forward to the next book, but currently this is not like one of my top 10 series of all time. I'm continuing my read-through of the fighting fantasy. This is book number 8, Scorpion Swamp, and this is the first one not by Steve Jackson. It's actually by Steve Jackson, who is an American game designer, not the Steve Jackson in the UK. So there's a weird bit of happenstance. This one has some very interesting new mechanics, which I will get to when I do my full video later. I then read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the original radio scripts. Now these are the scripts for the first 2 seasons of the radio show. And as well as it being the script for the radio series, there are a whole bunch of footnotes and there's an introduction. The footnotes contain interesting things like how they came up with the sound effects and certain things about the production of the show. And there are also notes by Douglas Adams himself on things like how he came up with the idea for the improbability drive and all that sort of stuff. So really fascinating if you're a Hitchhiker's fan. Last of all, I am reading The Fires of Heaven, Book 5 of The Wheel of Time. I've only just started this, so I'm not going to rank this yet. That will be in the next quarter's video, but I just thought I'd let you know that I'm reading it. Wow, that's boring. Anyway, I'm about 100 pages in, and not a lot has happened so far. All right, let's rank all these. All right, first of all, this one. I'm not going to include this with the rest. They're all novels. This is slightly different, and it's a bit of an unfair comparison because I'm giving this 5 stars just because of the extra information. For any Hitchhiker's fan, they will find stuff that's fascinating in here. So for that, it just gets 5 stars. And so we start with the 3.5 stars. System of the World, yep. A bit of a step up from the first 2 books, but I'm not going to give it more than 3.5 stars. I was hoping there would be some great payoff, but I just feel I didn't get it. Scorpion Swamp also gets 3.5 stars. There's some cool mechanics in here, but those cool mechanics are actually part of its downfall, and you'll have to wait for the full video to find out why. On top of the 3.5 stars is The Wandering Fire. I don't know. This series so far just isn't doing it for me. Apparently, Gavriel improves a lot, and a lot of people say, yeah, this first trilogy are definitely his weakest books. I mean, 3.5 stars is still a good score. In this case, it did have some great bits, but I don't think I'd ever want to read this series again. Now we're up to 4 stars, and How to Steal a Dragon's Sword is definitely a 4-star. It's nice to see that progression, and these are just fun books. And the last 3 are all 4.5 stars. So Johnny and the Dead. If you like Discworld, I think you'd like this. It's like how the Tiffany Aching books are kind of supposedly written for a younger audience. It's like that. One way to think of this is it's really just a Discworld book set in our world. If you've read a Discworld book, you know what this is going to be like. It was great. And then Rage of a Demon King. I can see why people say that this is one of the better sub-series in the whole Riftwar cycle. So much crazy stuff happens in this. Which means my book of the quarter is I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. I'll give this 5 stars on Goodreads. I think I still give it 4.5 stars. There's a definite aspect to some of Asimov's writing that it's telling and not showing, especially in those last 2 stories. And so that's the only reason I'm not giving it a full 5 stars. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Still an excellent book. Highly recommended to anyone who has never tried Asimov. So that's it. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are, and I will see you in my next video. See ya.